justice! Operation barrage! Shockwave! Proton cannon! Optic blast! Deep light! Optic blast!
Welcome back to GameVault HQ. Today we're taking a look at Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics, a collection that brings some of the most iconic fighters back to life. If you're a fan of fast-paced fighting games, you're probably wondering if this collection does justice to the beloved Marvel vs. Capcom series. Let's get into the action and find out if this is the knockout hit we've all been waiting for. Right out of the gate, this collection is a trip down memory lane. It brings together some of the most legendary titles from the Marvel vs. Capcom series, including X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It's hard not to feel nostalgic as you load up these games and see familiar faces like Ryu, Wolverine, Chun-Li, and Magneto. But the real question is, does this collection hold up in 2024? And is it worth adding to your library? Let's talk about gameplay. One thing that hasn't changed is the sheer speed and intensity of these fights. If you've played any of the games in this collection before, you'll instantly feel at home. The controls are tight, responsive, and designed for fast action. Whether you're pulling off devastating combos with Ryu or stringing together special moves with Spider-Man, the mechanics feel as good as ever. That said, these are arcade classics, and with that comes the arcade-level difficulty. This collection will test your reflexes, especially if you're not familiar with the older fighting game mechanics. Button mashing might get you through a few matches, but to really master these games, you need to learn the timing, combos, and special moves for each character. Thankfully, the controls are intuitive enough that you can pick them up quickly, but the challenge ramps up fast. If you've never played these games before, the learning curve might feel steep, especially with certain characters. But that's part of the fun, figuring out your own strategy, learning which characters fit your style, and trying out different team combinations. The collection does a great job of preserving the original look and feel of the games. The pixel art is crisp, colorful, and in some cases, even sharper than you remember. The classic 2D sprites still hold their charm, and the animations, though retro by today's standards, have a timeless appeal. There's something about that old-school arcade look that feels just right for this collection. You also have the option to adjust the screen display to match the original arcade aspect ratio, or you can stretch it to fit modern widescreen displays. Either way, the visuals are smooth, and there's no noticeable input lag, which is crucial in a fast-paced fighting game. One thing to note is that the audio has also been preserved from the original arcade versions. The familiar sound effects and energetic music are exactly as you remember, transporting you right back to the arcades of the 90s. It's a nostalgic treat for anyone who spent their quarters battling it out back in the day. One of the biggest selling points of this collection is the inclusion of online multiplayer. You can now take your favorite Marvel vs. Capcom matchups to the global stage. The online matchmaking works well, with stable connections for most matches. Of course, as with any online game, your experience will vary depending on the quality of your internet connection, but overall, it's a solid addition. What makes the online mode even better is that it includes rollback netcode, which helps reduce input delay during matches. This means you'll experience smoother, more responsive gameplay, even when playing against opponents from around the world. If you're serious about competitive play, this is a huge plus. The local multiplayer mode is also available, and it feels just as good as the old days. Whether you're playing on the couch with friends or going head-to-head with someone online, the multiplayer experience is one of the best parts of the collection. The collection comes with a few extra features to keep things fresh. One of the highlights is the art gallery, where you can browse through tons of original artwork, concept sketches, and promotional material from the games. It's a small touch, but fans of the series will definitely appreciate the effort to include these behind-the-scenes elements. There's also a training mode, where you can hone your skills before jumping into the real action. This is especially useful if you're new to the Marvel vs. Capcom series or just need a refresher on the mechanics. You can practice your combos, special moves, and team strategies until you're ready to take on tougher opponents. However, while the collection adds a few extras, it doesn't bring much new content beyond the online play and art gallery. If you're looking for major updates or remixes of these classics, you might be disappointed. This is more of a faithful preservation of the original games than a modern reimagining, so manage your expectations accordingly. While this collection does a great job of bringing back some iconic fighting games, it's not without a few drawbacks. The main issue is the lack of additional content or modes. Beyond the core games and the online multiplayer, there isn't much here to keep you playing long-term if you're not a die-hard fan of the series. Some players may have hoped for more unlockables, or maybe even a remastered version of one of the games in the collection. Another thing to keep in mind is that these games were designed for arcade play, so the single-player experience can feel a bit repetitive after a while. The AI, while challenging, doesn't offer much variety in terms of strategy, so once you've beaten the game with a few characters, there isn't much incentive to keep going unless you're a completionist. Lastly, the collection could have benefited from more robust tutorials. While the training mode helps, it doesn't go into much detail on advanced techniques or strategies. For newcomers, this can make the learning curve steeper than it needs to be. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, Arcade Classics, is a love letter to one of the greatest fighting game franchises of all time. It's a solid collection that does an excellent job of preserving these classic games and introducing them to a new generation of players. The tight controls, fast-paced gameplay, and nostalgic visuals all come together to create a fun and challenging experience. The inclusion of online multiplayer with rollback netcut code is a huge plus, allowing players to battle it out with opponents around the world. That said, the collection's appeal might be limited to those who are already fans of the series or have a strong sense of nostalgia for these titles. If you're looking for something with more depth or new content, this collection might feel a bit lacking. But if you're in it for the classic Marvel vs. Capcom experience, you won't be disappointed. We're giving Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics a solid 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more game reviews from GameVault HQ. See you in the next one.